Hi, I'm Dr. Jaime Module. Welcome to Module 10, the ABCs of Health and Wellness. In the course, if you want to fly higher, you must be lighter. This being the last module of Part 2, it's kind of a transition, thinking forward about what is the survivor-thriverhood experience. And so part of that is balance, part of that is being more responsible for our own well-being, and part of that is also integrating and being more intentional about our own spiritual life. And so I'd like to talk about those things in this module. The ABCs, not just meaning the like ABCs fundamental and not ABC like already been chewed, but any behavioral change. For us to live a healthier, more fulfilling, integrated, and sustainable life, I believe that we need to recognize that there are going to be some challenges because it's not familiar. It may be new ground, and we'll have to get used to having a better life experience, getting used to behaviors that push us, that may actually push other people. Well, if we want our own behavior to change, we may get some pushback from other people. And so all of this can be serious work. And so I want to think of the wellness as also lighter. And so I looked up, and this is from The Onion, so it's not a serious news source, but about happiness and fun. And there are several articles that popped up. It says, high school science teacher takes the fun and excitement out of science. Kitchen staff warned not to make fun of regional manager. 36-year-old still looking for ways to make brushing fun. The New York City Marathon winner just went out there and had fun. Experts find having fun not necessarily a key to victory. And then happiness. A grown adult actually expects to be happy. The average time spent being happy drops to 13 seconds per day. Office pariah not invited to happy hour get-together. San Francisco bans Happy Meal. And I wish I were happy like the people in the electronics store flyer. And so the point of these, besides being silly, is that they interchange happiness and fun, and we're bombarded with this idea of being happy and having fun. And it becomes so meaningless, really. I mean, we can start to think about happiness as a real deep connection, an inner experience that isn't dependent on external things. And we might think of fun as related to enjoying external things, but they don't have to be completely silly. The idea that just go out and have fun when you're doing something really, really difficult, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it is difficult. And the other times where people may say this is a happy hour, may not be a happy hour. So point is, we will find different ways to find meaningful happiness and health and wholeness together. And hopefully with you, with many others. So we need clarity, again, about behavioral change leading to health, happiness, sustainability is something we really have to commit to. It takes some courage. I mentioned that just because we begin different behaviors doesn't mean that they're going to be easily supported or greeted with enthusiasm, because some of that behaviors then may show that other people's behaviors aren't so healthy. We may have better boundaries. We may assert more what we want, and that may change the way others have perceived us as always serving them or being the person that they think we should be. So this is a good, challenging process. And so the ABCs, I want to point out, are act, balance, and company. So I want to talk about, in order for us to have change, we need to take action. And there's a kind of a song, actually, that I remember years ago. I went down to the jungles of Mexico in the southernmost state, Chiapas, where there were people living in community, something called liberation theologies and base communities. And they were extraordinary because these people were solving their own problems. And they were being persecuted by military. They were not being treated for medical needs that they had by the government and so on. And they would sing a song that was, ver, pensar, actuar es el método, ver, pensar, actuar es el método, ver, pensar, actuar es el método para caminar. And that's just, look, like see, think, and act is the method to move forward. And so we want to look around and see the direction we want to go in, and we want to take some action. It's really important. If we're overwhelmed with things, if we're depressed, if we want to get better, we have to act. And so I want to, think of us moving from a victim to having things happen to us, to survivorhood where we react, to being the survivor-thriver where we're thoughtful and we take action. So be practical about it, and then take some action. Do things that are measurable. Do things that are manageable. Things that are, call it, winnable. So we have that concrete experience of, yeah, I can set a goal, I can do it, and that's how we build. So we have to act to sustain our growth. We have to act sometimes to counter the triggers that may come up. And we have to act, I think, to respond just to the things in life that are difficult and can be really depressing if we just continue to absorb it all. So, B is balance. I think of self-care in those many different ways, but balance between physical and emotional and intellectual and spiritual. So to find ways in our schedule and their activities in the workbook for us to think about, how am I scheduling these things for myself? Given there are all these other demands on me, given there are things I have to do, how can I make my own self-care something I have to do as well? It's critical for us to be more effective and be more productive in all these other areas. So recognize that there's a balance in those 4 areas. There's a balance between our individual needs and kind of our group, maybe our culture, and that may be really challenging. In some cultures, there's not a real great sense of individual identity or individual needs. So there's going to be some changing there. Balance between connecting with ourselves and connecting with others, and making sure that we're responsive to others and responsible to ourselves. Balance in the kind of information that we take in. Some of it can be just information and be helpful, and I also think we have to take in inspirational material. For me, that's critical. And I know for lots of survivors, one of the best things that we do is to read about, meet, listen to people who are inspiring. I'm thinking this morning that I was talking to my wife about working with a group of middle schoolers because I just listened to a colleague have powerful presentations to middle schoolers, and she said, you know what, you're not that entertaining. You're inspiring, but you're not that entertaining. So inspiring is important. Being inspired, this is spirit. The inspiration, breath, is espíritu, all these respiration, these root words are connected. This is the best of us coming through. And when we see others and the best of them coming through hardship and challenge, we are inspired to grow and to be more as well. And consider the balance between taking care of our own individual needs and problem solving and taking care of other people. The work behind me represents a big task, a giant task, takes a long, long time. When I went too soon to try to take on too much material in my own recovery and then to take care of others and change the system of abuse as I was dealing with it, it was overwhelming. It was way too much. It did me harm. And so pay attention to these different areas. The systemic is still really important, and we have to begin in small ways to be successful, to have our good boundaries in place so that we can be of service. So act, have balance, and company. Go with others. Now, some people will use others, the support of others in therapy groups and support groups. Those are great, valuable. And some people turn to faith communities as part of their company, as part of their going with others. And so I want to spend a little bit of time with that last group because I know from experience that working with a lot of church folks, dealing with a lot of clergy abuse issues, and seeing the parallels between institutionalized cover-up with clergy, religious authority, sexual abuse, and other institutions, other organizations, whether it's scouts or sports or schools, that there are some patterns. So even though these are good people and these are potentially really good organizations, and I know that a lot of these organizations do a lot of good things. I'm a teacher. I love teachers. I want the best for kids in schools and so on. And I know bad things happen in schools too. So the point is, pay attention to the faith community, to the organization that you put yourself in, looking for support, looking for that company. One, is it a stable place? Not a locked down, rigid place where people don't talk. That's often what happens when this topic comes up. Because I would want you to bring your whole self in a place that will welcome you, that will receive you, that experience. So is it a stable place? Is this a place that's trustworthy? Are the people in that group, do they have good boundaries about how they talk to each other or gossip, or how they interact physically with one another, how they honor the roles and the authority that they've been given in that particular group? And we need to pay attention to that. Just because it's a good place, a good group of people, doesn't mean that they have healthy boundaries, and it's trustworthy, that we can trust this place, this group with our life experience. We find people who are appropriate, but pay attention to the larger group. Is this group competent? Is there a policy around abuse or about how to reach out to people who have experienced different kinds of challenges or painful experiences in life? Is there an education program that helps people to be more competent and to process their own experience? Because in every organization, and you may know the statistic already, think of 20% have experienced some kind of sexual abuse. So that means that there are a lot of people already there who have these wounds, who are maybe getting those things triggered, maybe not being so helpful for other people. And so to what degree does that organization have some language and ways for people to collectively process that? So it's not just you looking for support. There are others as well. And so how do you know that that support is there? And is this faith community or this organization you're turning to grounded in some real experience of hope? Not disconnected hope, ideal, that we're all good and wanting to be open and welcoming and all that, but the people have some experience of working through difficult issues, being able to name problems, name behaviors that need to change, and responding to those. There's an expression, I mentioned it before, follow no one who has no scars. If this community of faith doesn't have a language about their own struggles, if they don't have a consciousness about going through the process to be transformed, to be redeemed, I don't think that place is going to help you at least as much as you're hoping in a real positive way. It may be a place where you can bring yourself to some degree and find a lot of spiritual connection. But healing communities don't just happen, whether they're in support groups or in informal, faith-based or values-driven organizations. They require intentionality. Organizations, as you I'm sure have experienced in different ways, can be deforming, or they can require kind of conforming behavior. And what I want for you in this behavior change is to be transformed, be best of yourself. So this healing process is a spiritual journey. It is physical, it is emotional, it is intellectual, and it's also spiritual. And for many survivors, especially if that trauma has happened in a faith-based community, going back to those same environments may be really difficult. So be open to finding a community in different ways. Be open, to that life beyond our particular way of knowing faith. Because a lot of times people talk about having lost faith, or maybe even feeling dead, soul dead, and that may be related to a particular kind of experience. And I want to know that there's a lot more. There's a lot more. We'll talk more in the modules to come about integrating and taking more experiences from a wider spiritual community that we can rely on. I look forward to working with you in part 3.